You're listening to episode 122 of Present Moment. Welcome to Present Moment, Mindfulness, Practice, and Science. I'm Ted Meissner. Present Moment is a podcast with interviews, conversations, and roundtable discussions. We speak with mindfulness researchers about their newest findings published in peer-reviewed science journals, teachers about their understanding and methods as they work with students of mindfulness, authors about their books and interests, and we also speak with everyday practitioners. The website presentmomentmindfulness.com has show notes for each episode along with resource materials. Tracy Heilers joins us to speak about the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully. If you're listening to this podcast and find value and insights from what is shared here, know that this is made possible from your generosity and the generosity of others like you. I want to thank those of you who are making monthly donations to keep this podcast going, and if you're not yet, please take a moment, go to presentmomentmindfulness.com and click on Make a Donation. One-time or especially monthly donations shows you value this work, which can't happen without you. Thank you for your help, your support, and your kind generosity. Most of those I know who have a regular meditation practice were not fortunate enough to have been introduced to the practice at an early age, and even less likely to have had such an introduction in a school system. That appears to be changing, however, as mindfulness makes its way into the curriculum of K-12 education, mostly through grassroots efforts of teachers and parents. Today's guest will talk about a new resource for schools looking for connection and learning from other institutions and fellow educators. Tracy Heilers lives in St. Charles, Illinois, and is married to Gary Heilers, the Department Chair of PE and Health at Glenbard North High School in Carroll Stream, Illinois. While their three boys have grown, Tracy has taught yoga and other mindfulness practices at his and other schools to preschool students through AP Humanities students. Most recently, she started leading mindfulness sessions for teachers and family mindfulness nights at schools. Tracy completed her 200-hour yoga teacher training in 2003 and 2 of Mindful School's online courses in 2016. She has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from University of Iowa. Our guest today is Tracy Heilers. Tracy, welcome to the podcast. Good to speak with you.
I'm glad to be here.
It's so exciting. It was interesting as we were having our conferences beforehand, or conversations before this, how many people that we have in common. It was really interesting to see that this is still a very small world of mindfulness. But we'll talk a little bit more about your colleagues in this work in a few moments. Let's start by having you tell us about your background.
Sure, yes. I really love looking back on my life and kind of seeing the arches of my little hero's journeys that have happened and all the synchronicities. I started out as an engineer, actually, out of school, and with lower back pain of having those deadlines and such, I started doing yoga. But it was always just until my back started feeling better. But I think something about laying in those shavasana is really powerful, of just the silence. You know, that I think it slowly worked its way into like the authenticity of what I was doing and how I didn't feel like it aligned with who I really was. And so being an engineer actually didn't last long after starting to do a little yoga. Our next kind of journey of that my husband and I had together was trying to get pregnant. It was a 7-year journey. And as it's kind of a common journey nowadays. But the end result was just really learning about how you can self-heal. And probably about 2 years before, 5 years in, is when I discovered mindfulness. It was kind of one of those things. I was, all the self-help strategies I was trying to find for fertility, and Thich Nhat Hanh's book, one of his books, kind of jumped out at me on the new release shelf, and that was transformative. Like,
how did that change things for you, Tracy? What was that like? What was that shift?
Yeah, no, it just helped me see my life in a totally different way and able to kind of befriend the unknown. It was obviously a midlife, or it was somewhat of a crisis that I was going through. And it just kind of helped me with the depression I was in, helped me knowing that this is all okay, all these thoughts that are flooding in. You get into really cyclical things when you're, as everybody knows, when you're going through struggles. And the techniques I learned, just the simplicity of taking time out to just breathe, just really helped me keep everything in perspective. And then I eventually was like, okay, I need, in yoga too, I started doing yoga 3 times a week. I ended up quitting this next job I was in as a manager of a gymnastics center. One of those situations where you find yourself crying in the bathroom stall and can't do this anymore. So I took a break from everything for like 6 months and just really focused on recharging, regenerating, focusing on my mind and body. Then I decided, hey, I don't know what the heck I'm doing with my life. Having a baby right now isn't working. Let's take my focus off of that. I'll become a yoga instructor. I was also learning about Reiki, quantum touch, energy healing, alternative modalities. So I went away to Sedona for about 40 days and did a ashram style training there. We meditated every day. You can imagine it's a wonderful experience kind of being there for that period of time. And I got home and I got pregnant right away after that. So, and then that started my journey into using mindfulness for parenting, and the challenges that come with that.
Yeah. So what we're really here to talk about is an upcoming conference. And I know that came first, but I really want to get into a little bit of time with the Coalition of Schools Educating Mindfully and have a little bit of information about that. How did that idea get started? And then tell us what it is and what you do.
Sure. I have to kind of credit this idea to all the wonderful people bringing mindfulness to education already. I felt like I kept hearing over and over again in different ways. The universe was like putting up big signs everywhere I went, whoever I talked to, that we need to join forces. We have all these great programs out here already for schools, just getting them to the attention of these educators. SEL was obviously going strong with CASTLE. It's collaborative with academic and social emotional learning, who for years has been leading the way with, kind of call it SEL here in education. But the kind of key person I spoke with was Barnaby Spring from New York City Department of Education. He has now recently become Director of Mindfulness in Education there, which is amazing. But on a whim, I sent him an email this spring. I had first seen him at Wisdom 2.0 in February, and he did a people stage talk with Inner Explorer. I don't know if they used the word coalition, but the 5-minute talk, or I think it might have been 15, was all about joining forces. And that was just really resonated with me. At the time, my kids are older now, so I'm looking for ways to be a part of this movement and help out a nonprofit that is helping bring mindfulness into schools, and that really resonated. And so I sent him on a whim an email in the spring. It went to a spam box, and he found it 2 months later. And so this summer, he calls me up, so easy to talk to. He's just amazing. And right away, he's just like, because at the time it was just a 1 day, or actually I think it was 2 day conference at that time. And he had been inspired by Coalition of Schools educating, I think it's young boys of color. He had been to a conference in Boston, just got back from that. He was so inspired by that. He's like, we need to start a coalition of schools, and you can do it, you can do it. And me, I'm like, still at that point, like the confidence, I'm like, who am I to start a coalition? I'm just a parent. I'm not an educator. I love event planning. I love web design. I love all those things. And he pretty much convinced me like you're the person. Educators we're all too busy. We're busy doing our own thing within our own districts. And these great resource providers of these mindfulness programs, they have small staffs for their nonprofit. And, they're already overextended trying to do outreach for their own programs. So yeah, after that talk with him, I just got energized, and I'm like, I'm doing this. And then from that point on, kind of everything, all the right people kind of showed up. We now have 15 all educator board of directors, a lot from Illinois, but some from like Minnesota and other areas. And we're always, of course, always looking for more people to help us and be part of this great thing.
So say more about the coalition itself. What are the kinds of things that you do? I know it's a nonprofit organization, and what are the activities?
Yeah, so our first goal obviously was to put on a great resource conference, and then I can go into more of that later of how each day is unique, and we kind of try to, after researching all the other conferences, try to find something that isn't quite done the way we've done it. But we wanted to, in other ways, so that the conference is in Chicago, because there's not a lot going on in the Midwest. We are, I see a lot going on the coast, but I wanted to bring something to our neck of the woods. But we want to find ways for educators to get mentors, whether that be with an online community forum. There's other organizations already doing things similar to that, but just do it in a slightly different way. Webinars that we can do kind of Q&A and have interviews with educators. So me, for the coalition, finding these educators and what's going on in different parts of the world, and then allowing Q&As to happen and discussions so that we can be mentoring and learning from each other, even though we're all in different parts of the world. And then another great idea we had for having live trainings is to be a connecting agent with all these great trainings, MBSR trainers, as well as there's so many, I don't want to start naming names because we want to be inclusive and support them all, but bringing those to different, instead of having just the trainings on the coast, bring those to different parts of the country to educators who wouldn't maybe be able to get the trainings and do the travel. So connecting districts who would maybe want to host those. And we found the DuPage Regional Office of Education, which is right where I'm at. They have been so supportive from the very start. They actually have an SEL specialist, and a lot of DOEs and ROEs are starting to get those. But I think that will be one of the key areas that if we start connecting with the ROEs across the nation, and then we could maybe call them mindful educator academies, where different leaders, and a lot of them are educators. A lot of educators that I know and who are on our board have been trained in like learning to breathe. And so they're already training some of the staff at their district. Well, why not invite people from other districts to attend as well? So just finding these people who are willing to do the trainings, and not just trainings, but the support group too. As you know, with MBSR, that's a big part of it, to be able to be talking with people who are going through the same things as you are, and support each other. Yeah, those are a few things.
That's a lot, and it sounds like a great deal of focus on this. In fact, the start of the organization itself is the conference that's coming up in spring of 2019. So tell us about that. What's the intent behind that, and what sorts of things are going to happen at the conference?
Yeah, no, in the spring when I started kind of doing my vision board for the conference, it started out as just a one-day conference. I thought I had actually tried to sign up for an SEL conference in the spring at Walcott School here in Chicago, and it had a session on mindfulness rooms, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes! I was already working a lot in my husband's school, Glenbard North. They were thinking about starting a mindfulness room. Glenbard West had already started a mindfulness space. So I'm like, oh, I'll go to this conference and bring some great information back for them. And then it was sold out. So I kind of go train myself, with mindfulness, is when something not so good happens, do you label it right away as, good or bad, right? So it's kind of like that initial disappointment, like 2 seconds later, the idea kind of got downloaded. We need to have just a one-day conference on mindfulness. Obviously the timing's right. People want to come to this. So I set a date for March 1st, which is a Teacher Institute Day in the counties west of Chicago. So I'm like, okay, that's a great day because teachers are already, how it works is they get to go to different schools. So maybe PE teachers, Naperville North will, do some workshops for those people. So, so our day one, the initial starting day on that Friday, March 1st, I wanted it to be all about bringing the resources to the educators. When I'd researched some of the other conferences there, often they would have some of the resource providers like Naroga Institute lead a session. So people were learning about them, but most of the time it was just like at SEL conferences that the resource providers were on the sideline at the expos. But talking with some of them, like they're, kind of expos, we're a little done with expos. Like it's so much more helpful to be in front of people and being able to ask questions, tell about like just the success stories going on in the schools with these different programs. So I really wanted to give them a platform. That is our main focus on the Friday, and being as inclusive as possible. We have 15 breakout rooms, so we're gonna, with 4 different breakouts, and get in as many resource providers as possible to teach about their programs, so people can kind of a one-stop shop if you're researching in your school or district is thinking about adding a mindfulness component to their social and emotional learning, that they can come in and divide and conquer, have different team members go to different rooms. But of course, we also on Friday, we want to have a lot for the newbies too, who are just getting started on mindfulness. We want to meet everybody where they are in their journey. So we're going to have general sessions as well. Tish Jennings will be there. She has a new book coming out on trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive classrooms. And Gina Beagle has been so supportive from the very start. So obviously we have high school teachers, elementary teachers. So we need to find something that is for everyone. We want to have PE teachers coming in too. So we bring in Todd Corbin to talk about mindfulness and athletics, because he just has done a workbook with Gina. Yeah, so that's Friday. And then my next thought was, okay, I'm bringing in these mindfulness resource providers. I'm asking them to come for free and travel and all that. Like, we have them here, we need to utilize them even more. So the natural step was to have Saturday be about diving deeper into these programs. So you can take a full 6-hour day training. Most of these programs have like 2 or 3 day intensives already. So we're kind of giving them a shortened version of that on Saturday. So we have 14 full day workshops, and not just with those curriculum providers, but also like Barnaby Spring. He'll be doing one on creativity, imagination, and innovation, which is pretty much for everyone. Matt Dwar from Lake Forest High School. He's the wellness coordinator there and doing great things. But he's also a language arts teacher, so he'll do a workshop on narrative identity and kind of for those language arts and history people, or anyone, of course. So yeah, a lot of creative workshops happening on Saturday. So then, though, after talking to Barnaby and then starting the coalition, it seemed natural we want to get as many educators sharing their stories as possible. And we couldn't do that all in one day on Friday. So we decided to split that and have Thursday be the annual coalition gathering. And each year we'll highlight one district that there's so many districts doing great things. So this first year will be Barnaby curating a team of 8 or so from his mindfulness leaders in the DOE there. And of course, bringing in a bunch of other educators as well, from Minnesota, DC, Texas, to Kentucky. We'll have lots of people sharing and having roundtables on that day where people will have like a working lunch with people. So, the PE teachers will be together, the psychologists will be together, so that you can, obviously there's a lot more people who are doing things and can be sharing, and we can be learning and getting those connections. And so we want to provide a platform for that.
Sounds like a lot going on with that. And for those who are listening, you can find out more about that on the website that's been set up for this, educatingmindfully.org. Tracy, was there anything else you wanted to share with the listeners?
Oh, I could go on and on. So I don't know if there's something specific. No, I think we've covered a good amount.
Pretty well covered things. All right. Well, what I'm hoping is you come back as a guest after the conference and let us know how things went, what learnings there were from that. Our guest today, Tracy Heilers. Tracy, thank you so much for being here. Really good to speak with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to hear more about something you've heard in today's podcast, please come visit the website at presentmomentmindfulness.com. You'll find an entire webpage devoted to this and every episode. You can comment on the episode page and find show notes and other helpful resources for your mindfulness practice. The shakuhachi music heard on Present Moment is used by permission and through the generosity of musician Rodrigo Rodriguez. His website is linked on the Present Moment website on the About Podcast Music page. Sound editing, mixing, and mastering provided by the generosity of Anthony Dominello of StructureFromSound.com. Until next time, remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. See you next time on Present Moment.